Right, you lot, and welcome to the fourth part of this 17-part series where I'm going to be breaking down one by one every single song on my album. And I've done three already. They were very good, great videos, so I want to do that again. So the fourth song I decided to pick was the opener of the album, and it's quite a substantial song in the sense that it was such a breakaway from everything I knew before, not just in a lyrical front, but in a delivery front, in a style front. Undecided was massive for me. Now, when I came to do Undecided, I wanted to open the album with something distinct, something massive, and I mentioned it in the meaning of my album video, so I don't want to retread it too much, but I wanted to do a song but would show that this is a different artist from the guy who did Made It Out Alive. I wanted to do a song that said, kind of the order that I wrote the songs, I probably should have done these breakdown in order that I wrote them, but it's a bit late now, which I technically can kind of still do, because Bandage was the first one I wrote, and I did that one first, I kind of wrecked it with U-turn, but I didn't do reverse next, but yeah. I'll probably do that going forward. Do a bit more of an order, I think. But this is the fourth song that I wrote on the album. I wrote Bandage, but technically the first version of Bandit. Then I did Reverse. Then I did 2 Feet. Then I did Always Been You. Then I did Undecided. This was the fifth song actually, if we're not counting Bandage. So the songs before that, they were 2 Feet and Change the Tide were anomalies, but pretty much all of my songs were rap versus sing choruses or just straight ballads. This was a rock song. This was a whole new territory. And for this rock song, I did two rock songs on the album actually. This and Slow Motion, which Slow Motion will be a very interesting breakdown when I do that one eventually. But Undecided is a song about homophobia. It's a song about. It's not what you'd expect. It's not just the standard that you get. It's like, oh my god, how are people still homophobic in 2023? It's ridiculous. But there is a bit of that in there because it's pathetic. But then there's also the like, why do people get so worked up about it? And this little rant here, but this is something I don't get, right? People make such a big deal out of something that only is really relevant for 1 month a year. Apart from that, unless it's on your doorstep, it's not getting involved. It's not like a bloody like exam or something that you have to do. It's not like going to work. Or like eating and drinking. It's not a fundamental thing. Like, fair enough complaining about going to work because you have to do that every day. It's always involved in your life, or complaining about a person who's always involved in your life, but complaining about something like homophobia and get so worked up about it. And the way some people talk about it, it's like, it's ridiculous. Let people do what they want to do. You know what I mean? Like, unless you're literally someone who goes around and watches people have sex and you can't stand the sight of seeing two men or two women get off, then I think that's the problem in your front that you're going around. And B, who actually cares? Like, it's such a minuscule thing, it doesn't matter. And so I wanted to make a statement, not just about my own sexuality, but also just kind of a broader thing. So yeah, the chorus is like, they say I'm to the side, they say I'm about to change my mind. Well, let me let you in a live slide. Hey, yo, I'm bloody bite. And it's like another thing you hear a lot is like people are like, oh, you're too young to make up a mind. You don't know. And it's like, how how can other people tell you something that is in your head? Like, how can people know what's going on in your mind? It's so funny when you hear people go like, oh, you don't know yet. How do I don't know? How like, because it's my brain. Like, you know what I mean? I'm the one in control. It's like, you hear it, I've heard it saying times. And it's like, that's such a common phrase. Always scared to take a risk because of reception, slam straight through societal reject a viewpoint that believes in medieval devil celebration, out of touch with God creation. That's not an actual anti-religious line, by the way. It may the pit like that, but it's it's more just like the way people talk about it. I'm not saying I'm against it. It's more aimed at like those die-hard Christians who are like, nowadays Christians aren't that homophobic really. Like, there is a portion that are, but like churches are starting to get more accepting, which fair enough. And they kind of get to the point where, like, well, God designed you to be like that, and we're going to accept that. We may not like it, but we're going to. And so it's not really that line, but it's more that, like, the people who swear on, like, that like, there is no way in God's world where two men fall in love. It's that. It's more though that crowd. It's not an actual anti-religious thing in any way. They say we progress, but I tell you, if I've finished, I've been wearing personas for too long, no matter how, and they call you a waste just because of your taste. That's one of my least favourite phrases ever. Up there with congregating, I hate that word. When people call homosexual people a waste because they like the same gender, it's like, what do you mean? Like, unless you're calling them a waste because you wanted them to have kids and they can't because they're same sex, but then, like, adoption, prostitutes, like that, there's ways to work around that if they want kids, first of all. And second of all, you're not valued on your worth based off who you marry. Unless you're in, like, 15th century, like, England royalty, unless you're in, like, Cinderella or something, like, oh, we have to marry you off to the prince because we have to do some deal between the two kingdoms. Like, unless you're in that front, you're not actually, like, you know what I mean? You're not. It doesn't matter. You're not valued by who you marry. Love is supposed to be something that you can choose, and that's the good thing about the 21st century. Because in past, in, just take 14th, 15th century, 16th, even into the early 1800s, it's like parents would just pick who who you'd marry. You didn't get a say. You wouldn't get to meet them, and it still happens in some countries, unfortunately, today. Especially young girls as well, 11, 12, and you're being forced to marry older guys in certain places, and that needs to stop as well. But again, it's an emotion. It's like love should be a free thing. How can you be a waste? And sorry for that rant, but yeah. Then we got the chorus again, and second verse, it's a bit more cynical. The first one is, like, a bit more serious. This one is, honestly, it makes me laugh to see people go out of the way to make absolute disrespect against something not concerned slightly. Just act oblivious, have the decency to on the surface act politely. Ain't telling you to change your mind. Honestly, that's a waste of time. Just keep your ancient to the side. Sometimes it seems like nothing changed at all. The same old stumble before the fall. And it's like, again, it's like, I'm not going to try and debate homophobic people. I'm not going to sit down with them and try and explain, because it's a waste of time. They are fixated on that view. They are not going to be shooken. They believe one way, and fair enough if you believe that, but you don't need to go around spouting that opinion, and that can work in any front. For example, like, you wouldn't go up to two people talking about baseball, say you don't like baseball, and then leave. It's pointless. Why are you involved in that conversation? Just stay there. Don't get involved. Like, you know what I mean? Let people talk about it. If, for example, I don't like gaming, anime, they're very popular amongst my friends. I've expressed those opinions, but I let them talk about it. I don't have to headbutt how much I hate it in every conversation. I let them get on with it. I let them discuss it, and I wait till my turn to change a subject to something I'm more inclined to. I don't need to go around shouting and really bellowing around that I don't like them, because it's irrelevant. It's pointless. What am I getting out of it? It's like, it's like, why would you do? It'd be the same with, like, you go up to a Trump supporter and you try to hammer in their head how bad Trump is. It's like, you're not getting anywhere. They're gonna just spout back why they like him. It's a pointless argument. It's like, very rarely would you be actually able to change, unless they're very uneducated and they just like him because he's sexy or something. Like, unless that's the case, you're like, actually, he's racist and that, and it's like, this is the biggest tangent. This is what I like about the breakdown. I go on to more tangents because there's a lot of kind of what went into this song. And then we have a massive instrumental break. I love the instrumental break in this song. Like, it's some of the key's best work. Honestly, get this man a raise. I'm no longer afraid. Say what you want, I won't be swayed. There's still people like me going to graves, frightened of sense today. And it's like, there's still a high level of deaths in the LGBT community, still in 2023, and that's ridiculous to me. It's like, It's 2023. You know, I mean, it's not 1923. Like, it's ridiculous. And it's only a small bunch nowadays. I think a huge majority, and I do feel bad for, because I think a lot of the time people will lump and say this whole crowd. And, like, for example, people will say Christians are homophobic, or people will say old people are homophobic, and that does a lot of disservice to a lot of Christians or old people because they're not actually, and it's only a small minority, and it's only like a tiny crowd, but that crowd is vocal, so that crowd, people build it up to be a bigger group than it is. So I think that's where stereotypes come from, and that's where a lot of the fundamentals. So yeah, I wanted to do a more universal song. I wanted to do something on an issue that I actually found was relevant, was necessary. So that's what I wanted to elaborate on. So yeah, I'm gonna thank you so much for watching this. I'm Lewis. Goodbye.